Hello, welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion and discover the God who refuses to fit inside the boxes we were given. I'm Tolu Sarah Johnson, and here we explore who God really is beyond fear, beyond formulas, and beyond everything we were taught to perform. If you're hungry for a real relationship with Him, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. So, this is going to be the last parable in the theme of return, because we've been going through the theme, all the parables, the 54 parables. The first 12 belongs to the theme of awakening. Yes, that was the first 12. So we move from awakening, we move to the theme of return, and we've got 8 parables in there. We've talked about 7 thus far, and this is the last one in the theme of return. And this is the unmerciful servant. That is the name of this last parable, and that is in Matthew 18, verse 21 to 35. He said, Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I'll forgive him? Up to 7 times? And Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts with his servant. And when he had begun to settle account, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was not able to pay, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and the payment be made. The servant therefore fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, I will pay you all. Then the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay you all. And he would not, but went and threw him into the prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were very grieved and came and told their master all that had been done. Then his master, after he had called him, said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry and delivered him to the torture until he should pay all that was due to him. So my heavenly Father also will do to you if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses. That's huge. We walk through a whole journey of return. The father searching for the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the prodigal son. Jesus honoring the tax collector, the broken woman, the one who knew they've sinned. The kingdom celebrating every act that comes so. The call to persistent prayer and honest humility. The revelation that those forgive much, love much. Yes, the revelation that those forgiving much, love much. So now Jesus brings the return theme to sharp, sobering close with one last question. Now that you know how much I've forgiven you, what will you do with the people who hurt you? This is where return shift from me coming back to God to, will I let my heart come back to love? And that's exactly where this next theme will be taking us. Once we're done with this, we're moving to the next theme, which is relating, and that will begin. But let's dive deeper into this parable. You know, This part started with how much forgiveness is reasonable. Peter asked that question. Peter doesn't start this parable. It's pained us. Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? You can almost hear what's behind that. I've actually tried, Lord. I have forgiven. Surely there must be a limit, right? Surely at some point I'm allowed to say, that's enough. 7 in Jewish thinking is the number of completeness. Peter isn't being stingy. He thinks he's being generous. And Jesus' answers completely shatters that framework. Not 7 times, but 70 times 7. In other words, Peter, you are counting. The kingdom doesn't. Yes, it's not given a literal 490 strike policy. It's exposing the spirit of the kingdom. You were not forgiven on a quota. You are not kept on a tally. So you cannot become an accountant of other people's sin. Yes, before Jesus ever tells the story about the king and the servant, he's already saying, return means more than coming back to my house. It means letting go of the scorecard you keep on others. Yes, it's more than you coming back to God. It's part of you having to let go of all the baggages of unforgiveness that you carry in you. There was someone that really hurt me badly in my lowest stage, in my lowest time. And I asked Papa, I said, Papa, you said I should forgive. But how far do I know that it's going to be punished for what he did? And Papa said, that is none of your business. He was so sharp and direct with me, I got the message. Told you, you have been forgiven many times. And I've asked Papa before, I said, is there a time that you give up? Papa said, no. Do you know how many times I've forgiven Matthew? I forgive all my children. I don't have a limitation. I am a God of unlimitation. I am unlimited, generous with my love, with my kindness. So, 2 deaths, 1 impossible, 1 small, but both real. Yes. So Jesus tells us the story. A king calls in account. 1 servant owes him an untakeable amount, thousands of talents, a completely impossible debt. Another servant later appears in the story, owing only a few thousand in comparison. If 1 talent is roughly 20 years' wages, then thousands of talents is 20,000 years of wages. A number so absurd, it is essentially you will never ever pay this back. And Jesus is doing this on purpose. He's saying, you are not basically good person that are helped a little. You are a servant whose debt was astronomically beyond your ability to pay. And this is not to shame you. It is to locate you. Every thought, every selfish motive, every hidden addiction, every harsh judgment, every time you choose self over love, all of that is the impossible debt. And the king, representing the father, looks at you and says, I will absorb the loss. I will carry the cost. Your debt is cancelled. Not reduced, not restructured, not put on payment plan. Cancelled. And this is the core of return. We did not sort ourselves out and then return to God. We came home empty-handed and He tore up our account. So, you expect the story to end in tears of gratitude? The man falls on his knees, he pleads. The king, moved with compassion, releases him and wiped out his debt. He walks out of the room and A free man. He walked out of that room, a free man, and immediately he went and found a fellow servant who owed him a few $1,000s. He grabbed him by the throat and demanded instant payment. It is deliberately violent language. Grabbed him by the throat, demanded full payment, zero patience, zero mercy. And the second servant will react exactly like that, like he did. Be patient with me, I will pay it. Same posture, same words, different response. And this is where the parable turns into a mirror. Jesus is asking you, what do you do after you walk out of my throne room, forgiven of 20,000 years worth of sin? How do you speak about the one who betrayed you? How do you treat the one who humiliated you? How do you think about the one who abused your trust, spent your money, misjudged your heart? The unmerciful servant doesn't just refuse to forgive. He weaponizes his position. Yes, he had the man arrested and put in prison until the debt could be paid. The forgiving man becomes a jailer. Jesus is making something painfully clear here. If forgiving people don't become merciful people, something is profoundly wrong. And that's what the church is today. A pastor that's been forgiven so many times of his private sin, and then knows about a member, maybe who is a prostitute, and shame her in front of the church and tell her to walk away. She can no longer be quiet, or she can no longer be a worker in the church. A lot of gay people have experienced that. No mercy. They are chased out. That's why a tailor, a seamstress, will take a job from two gay women who wanted her to sew their wedding dress, and she declined because of her faith. It is not right for her to sew those same dresses for those gay women. And what did they do? They sue her, and she almost lost her business. And I asked Papa, what do you think? Papa said, what about the fornicator she sewed same wedding dress for? What about the adulterers she sewed wedding dress for? Why didn't she turn them down? That's the problem. You've been forgiven much, but you cannot look at others with the mercy of God. And what unforgiveness actually does is it makes you make the wrong decision, like that woman. She made the wrong decision and she paid for it. She came to the channel where I saw her. She was begging for money to fight the legal case that she doesn't need to have in the first place. So when the other servants see this, they are deeply upset and report everything to the king. Yes, they were thinking. The king calls the man back and says, you evil servant, I forgave you that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy of your fellow servant just as I had mercy on you? Is God looking down on you as well as a pastor? You evil servant, I forgive you your masturbation beyond the sin. I forgive you of your addiction to prostitute beyond the sin. But you can't forgive, you can't have mercy on your fellow church members. Then come the frightening line. In anger, the king sent him to the jailers to be tortured until he had paid back all he owed. Jesus then brings it home. That's what my heavenly Father will do to you if you refuse to forgive your brothers and sisters from your heart. This is not a gentle suggestion. It is a warning. And you've already captured this within. From the previous parables, all of these parables are warnings. Unforgiveness is not a small side issue in the kingdom. It can literally bar someone from entering heaven. It hands a person over to tormentors, bitterness, mental anguish, spiritual oppression. You could say it this way: the prison isn't only for the person you refuse to forgive, it becomes your home too. Yes, unforgiveness replaces the offense in your mind, poisons your thought, distorts your view of God's goodness, blocks the flow of mercy into and through your life. And the king in this story isn't petty, he is just. He's looking at a man who received ocean-sized mercy and refused to give even a cup of it away. Yes. Is that what Christians have become? You've received an ocean of mercy, but you are not willing to give a cup away because you think they don't deserve the same God that's forgiven you. So, look at the flow of the return parables. Friend at midnight, learning to come to God boldly. Lost coin, lost sheep, prodigal son, discovering how relentlessly you are pursued and welcome. Pharisees and tax collector, two debtors, learning that humility, not performance, is the way. Unjust judge, refusing to give up on prayer and hope. And now, unmerciful servant, now that you've returned, what will you do with everyone who hasn't? Yes, return is not complete if I come back to God, but keep others locked in the prison of what they did to me. Yes, if you are in heaven and you are enjoying all the abundance of heaven, and you've not forgiven that your fellow sister that God has lifted above you, and you go about with bitterness in you against them because you cannot figure it out why God has given them a place and relegated you to a lower realm or relegated you to a lower responsibility. Return reaches its fullness when I say the same mercy that met me in my field is the mercy I choose to release over the ones who hurt me. So, a lot of people that we think they don't deserve heaven, don't we think we need to be releasing them now? Because we are not the judge. That hatred that you've created for people within you because they are not in your religion or they are not heterosexual like you are, the list goes on. Aren't you going to release them so that you can be set free? Because you can be in heaven and still be living in prison. You're relegated to torture, torment, because you're not letting loose. You're not letting go of the things that you are holding on to. So in other words, you haven't fully returned until your heart returns to mercy. Yes, you have not fully returned until your heart returns to mercy. And that's exactly where we now pivot into the next theme. Relating, learning to walk with God and with others out of this new act of mercy. Yes. And what are the signs that you haven't really forgiven? You and Jesus, a lot of us have spoken to Jesus so many times, especially in heaven. And we know that Jesus is so filled with this love and kindness. And when you look at these parables, it's just dripping with love. That the way Jesus and Papa sees us is totally different from the way we see us. So if you think of a person and your heart still feels with resentment, bitterness, anger, they owe me, forgiveness is not finished. Some signs is you replay what they did over and over. You imagine conversations where you finally put them in their place. Your mood changes every time their name comes up. You avoid places, people, or opportunities because they remind you of that person. You feel a small satisfaction when you hear something negative about them. These are not proofs that you are evil. They are indicators that you are still bleeding. And Jesus isn't ashamed, isn't shaming you. He's inviting you. Bring this to me. I forgave you an impossible debt. Let me walk you through forgiving the smaller ones. So many people are in heaven now. Jesus is saying, bring it. Bring all of those things that you're still holding back against people or even against me. Bring it to me. Every resentment you have towards me, bring it to me. Let me walk you through forgiving these smaller ones so that you can move to the next phase in your life. And forgiveness or not is also important. This parable does not mean you must stay in an abusive situation. You must trust someone who continues to harm you, or that you must pretend nothing ever happened. Forgiveness is not amnesia. It's not denial. It's not being a doormat. There's a lot of people I've forgiven, I've moved on, but I've closed the door of my heart to them. I've blocked it. But that doesn't mean I've not forgiven them. Because if I don't, they will keep hurting me. So forgiveness is releasing the right to vengeance, handing the debt over to the king and saying, I will not be your judge, your jailer, or your God. You can forgive someone and still put wise boundaries in place. Leave a toxic job. End a destructive relationship. Refuse to enable ongoing sin. The king in this story doesn't hand the unmerciful servant to torture because he felt odd. He judges him because he refused mercy after receiving it. Yes! And that is what we do. A lot of Christians, a lot of those religious, chronically religious Christians, you are denying people the mercy, the same mercy that the Father made available to you. So on earth, the call is heart forgiveness, no hatred, no vengeance, no inner murder. And of course, relate wiser. Spirit-led boundaries to protect what is holy. Spirit boundary to protect your heart. And the balance is the bridge into the next thing, which we'll still be talking about, relating. So, for people in heaven, mercy still shapes your eternity. You've already got to heaven. In heaven, people still have their free will. They still make choices. They can still act from the flesh or from the spirit. Realms and responsibility increase as people grow in humility and love. So, what does this parable say to those listening from heaven? Heaven still cares how you view others. Yes, even in heaven, you can settle into comfort. You can focus on your own joy, hobbies, interests. You can forget to extend yourself towards others who are wounded, confused, or slow to grow. You can decide to be that person that doesn't have mercy on them. And the king's question still echoes, shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you? In heaven, mercy might look like investing time in someone from a lower rank, using your gift to lift someone else's joy, not just your own, choosing to see someone's destiny instead of their past. Yes. So, promotion in heaven isn't about being the most gifted. I am not the most well-spoken. You can see my English is always all over the place. Being the most theologically accurate, it is not about being the most productive. Promotion is deeply tied to intimacy with Jesus and reflecting his heart. And his heart is profoundly merciful. There is no how you'll be close to his heart that you'll not be merciful. So this parable whispers to the heavenly listeners, don't settle for enjoying your own forgiveness. Ask how you can become an expression of that forgiveness to others. In that way, the parable of the unmerciful servant is not just a warning for her, it's a calling to ongoing transformation in heaven. So let's close with this simple analogy: the cancelled mortgage and unpaid coffee. Imagine you hold the bank your entire mortgage, $250,000. You've defaulted. You are behind. You are facing losing the house. One day the bank manager calls. Someone has paid your mortgage in full. We've cleared the account. You owe us nothing. You're stunned. You cry, I'm free. And on your way, you see a neighbor who borrowed $3 from you for a coffee last week. They forgot to repay. And you march over, red face. Where is my $3? You always do this. I'm sick of being used. You shout, they apologize. They say, I'll pay you next week. You threaten them, shame them, and tell everyone they are unreliable. Don't trust them. They still owe me. On paper, the neighbor owes you. That part is real. But in the light of the cancelled mortgage, your reaction is insane. And that's the entire parable. Their debt to you is real. Your pain is real. But compared to what God has cancelled, it is tiny. It is irrelevant. And forgiveness is not saying you never hurt me. It is saying, compared to what he forgave me, I will not cling to this as if it is the ultimate. I hand it over. Yes, that's what Papa Jesus is expecting us to do. And this parable is the doorway between two movements in my book. Return. How we come back to God from lostness, from religion, from performance, from pride, from unbelief and despair. And in the next set of parables, we'll be going to relating how we now walk with God. How do we walk with God now that we've returned? How do we walk with ourselves? How do we walk with our enemies? How do we walk with our brothers and sisters? How do we walk with the broken world? Because it's not enough to return. You need to learn to build back your relationship with Papa, with the Trinity. You need to learn to work on your relationship with people. You need to love. You need to be an overflow of God to people. You need to be the representation of Christ to people around you. So you cannot truly live this theme of relating if you're still secretly holding people by the throat in your heart. You are still silently keeping lists of who owes you respect, apology, money, or repair. You want to receive softness from God, but offer hardness to others. And that is what Christianity is all about. Religion. They want to receive softness from God, but what they offer on a day-by-day basis is hardness. So the king's final question is the hinge between the two things. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant just as I had mercy on you? That's just as is the bridge into relating. Because now the story is shifting from you as the prodigal coming home to you as the older brother learning to join the party. From you as the lost sheep on his shoulders to you as the shepherd searching for others. And from you as the debtor on your knees to you as the one choosing mercy where you could demand payment. So, a gentle invitation before we move on. Before we step into the next thing, it is almost as if Jesus pauses the narrative and says, don't rush past this chapter. Ask, Lord, who still owes me in my heart? Let me bring up faces, names, and memories. Don't force it, but don't run away when it appears. Yes, let him bring up faces and names that's still in your mind, that's stopping your growth. And then, somewhere quiet, you can pray something like this. Father, you forgave me an impossible debt. I bring you this person, what they did. I release my right to punish, shame, expose, or control them. I hand the debt to you. I ask you to heal my heart, and I bless them into your hands. Teach me slowly what forgiveness from the heart looks like. I want to return fully, not just to your arms, but to your mercy. And when a heart prays like that, even trembling, even unsure, the king smiles, because now you are ready for the next movement, relating. living, loving, and working with God and others out of the same mercy that rescued you. God bless. See you in the next parable, parable 21, the first one of how we begin to relate to people, to Trinity, and to anyone that might come your way. God bless.